Okay, let's dive into the absolutely incredible story of how one of the greatest films ever made almost didn't happen. Seriously. It's this wild tale of chaos, genius, and some very real danger that somehow came together to create a true cinematic legend. So you have to ask, right? How did a gangster film that no studio wanted to touch become this towering American classic? Well, that question gets you right to the heart of this Hollywood legend, because the drama behind the camera was almost as intense as the story on screen. I mean, just look at what they were up against. The production of The Godfather was plagued with so many problems, it should have sunk any other film. You had a studio that was super hesitant because other mob movies had just bombed. Their big star, Marlon Brando, was considered box office poison at the time. The director, he was on the verge of getting fired like every other day. And if that wasn't enough, the actual mob was trying to shut the whole thing down. It was a total recipe for disaster. So let's start right there, with the incredible chaos of just getting this movie made. It was a true battle of wills. You gotta remember, Paramount Pictures was really not interested in another mafia movie. Their last one, The Brotherhood, had been a huge flop. So they saw this new project as a massive financial risk. The only reason they even greenlit The Godfather was because the book was a runaway bestseller. And even then, they were determined to make it on the cheap. So in comes the director, Francis Ford Coppola. And the studio partly hired him because they thought, hey, he's young, he's broke, he'll be easy to push around. But as Coppola said himself, he was terrified. And you know what? That fear, that desperation, it fueled this incredible fight in him to protect his artistic vision for the film that would basically define his entire career. And Coppola's vision was the key. He wanted to elevate this story beyond just another gangster flick. He saw it as something bigger, a story about family, about power, and about the dark side of the American dream. He literally described it as a story about a king and his three sons. And right at the center of that vision is the patriarch, Vito Corleone. He embodies this ideal of family loyalty. It's everything to him. He presents his entire criminal enterprise as this fortress he built just to protect the people he loves. That's the justification for all of it. But here's where it gets really interesting. You have that ideal, and then you have his son Michael, who wants nothing to do with it. This one line he says to his girlfriend, Kay, "That's my family, Kay. That's not me." That line sets up the entire tragic story. He wants out. He wants a normal American life. But of course, the pull of family is just inescapable. Michael's transformation from this outsider, this war hero, into a cold, ruthless Don, well, that's the dark heart of the whole film. It's this chilling look at how power corrupts, even when you think you're using it for the right reasons. But you know, the artistry that turned this story into a masterpiece wasn't just on the page. It was forged in its revolutionary look and sound, creating a world that felt both timeless and, honestly, terrifyingly real. The cinematographer, Gordon Willis, was nicknamed the Prince of Darkness, and for good reason. He created a look that completely turned the gangster genre on its head. He used this technique called chiaroscuro, which is basically this dramatic play between light and shadow to make scenes look like old Renaissance paintings. It gave the whole film this rich, mythic quality, bathing everything in these warm, almost nostalgic colors that brilliantly hid all the menace lurking in the dark. And that's the genius of it, right? The darkness wasn't just a mood, it was literally on the screen, illustrating the film's biggest themes. Those shadows were hiding secrets, they were hiding motivations, perfectly mirroring the moral decay that was happening inside the characters themselves. And then there's the music. Composer Nino Rota's score basically became a character in the movie. That one haunting, lonely trumpet, that unforgettable, melancholic waltz, it's the sound of tradition and power and this deep, irreversible sadness. It's a score that's been burned into our collective memory forever. Now, as if the on-screen drama wasn't enough, this is where things get really crazy. The film's authenticity got a huge and very dangerous boost from its shockingly close relationship with the real-life mob. The New York Mafia, led by a guy named Joe Colombo, launched this whole campaign to shut the film down. First, the producer, Al Ruddy, had his car followed and the windows shot out, a clear message. Then, expensive camera gear just started vanishing from the set. But then it got way more personal and terrifying. A Paramount executive got a call threatening his wife and his newborn baby. It all came to a head when Ruddy had to actually sit down with Colombo himself and cut a deal. And part of that deal was striking the word mafia from the entire script.
And the film also borrowed heavily from real mob history, blending fiction with these startlingly true events and people. Get this. Marlon Brando actually based Vito's famous raspy voice on wiretapped recordings he listened to of a real mob boss named Frank Costello. The line between art and reality here was just incredibly, incredibly thin.
So, of course, the film comes out and its success is just unprecedented. It becomes a massive cultural phenomenon. It saves Paramount Pictures from going under, and it creates this enduring legacy that led to one of the greatest sequels ever made and, well, a pretty controversial final chapter.
The whole saga spanned decades, and each chapter added another layer to the Corleone family's complex legacy. Part 2 was an absolute masterpiece, many say even better than the first. But Part 3, which came out much later, was seen by a lot of people as a flawed ending, and that's what led Coppola to go back and revisit it 30 years later. He re-edited that final film into what he called Coda, and in doing so, he changed its structure, and most importantly, he changed Michael Corleone's ultimate fate. In the original Part 3, Michael dies, old and alone. But in Coda, he's condemned to live on with his guilt. A fate that's maybe even worse than death, and one that Coppola felt was a more fitting punishment for him. So when you boil it all down, The Godfather is so much more than just a movie. It's a modern myth about power, about family, and the true cost of the American dream. It's a story that completely reshapes cinema, and even today, keeps asking us these really difficult questions about morality, loyalty, and ambition. And I think that's the lingering power of this masterpiece. It forces you to empathize with these characters you know you should condemn. And it leaves you wondering long after the credits roll, does the film just glorify monsters, or does it reveal the potential for a monster inside all of us?